All right, we're back. Thanks for watching this with me and listening to this with me, is what I really meant to say.
Open. And the reason for that is because I always write front to back. And a lot of times I kind of know where I want the ending of it to be, because I
Tip
know
to
that if
butt.
I get to a certain point, I will have captured that feeling. But along the way, some of the details in the middle make it a little messy, or I may change some stuff. And then,
Messy.
because I'm fairly disorganized when I'm writing, I will either forget or go
What
back to
chaotic
something
genius.
and not change it somewhere else. So
Who would have
I would
thought?
say, as on the whole, my writing process is pretty loose, and that is maybe why it takes me so long now, at least much longer than it used to.
Loose.
To
Yo,
get
hang
stuff
loose.
out and get stuff on paper, because I spend a lot of time working on details and then reworking over details, and then
What a genius.
but I put it off now for a month, and now I got to come back to it and okay,
Ugh.
what am I trying to do here? And so
The
I
world deserves this. I
now
can't
in
delay
the middle
it
of a bigger
anymore.
project that I've been working on for a couple of months, or not a couple months, I guess now a full year and a half, 2 years or so. And so
Yeah, it was Kalinin who said that basically just because you put a lot of time into something doesn't mean that it's good, and no one deserves to give you good praise for it just based on how long you spent on it. So watch out.
no longer is it just like the struggle to maintain consistency within the scope of a single article. You're also trying to maintain consistency within the scope of many different articles.
Yeah, this is something that Randomity actually criticizes in the next episode of this podcast, saying that once again, the original intention of the wiki was to have self-independent, self-sustaining articles, isolated gems that don't require or lean on or depend on some sort of grander oeuvre of works that you have to get into and understand as a prerequisite before you can get this new article. Once again, I mean, this is a guy who doesn't care about that. Not to say that he doesn't write things that can stand alone. It's just that basically, once you have somebody like this who, was the person who's obsessed with upvotes is going to be the one with the most. Both by virtue of them having the most, and they develop this Scrooge-like relationship with their own wealth, where the more they have, the more more they want, and more paranoid they get about losing it or whatever. But also because in order to get to the point where you're fronting your upvote total as a argument for what a good writer you are, which are completely disconnected things. That's the sort of person who is going to try their hardest to mine any potential territory for upvotes. Doesn't matter where that territory is. And so once again, that the introduction of narrative, which djkaktus certainly is a fan of, really has spurred once again the wiki past the edge of the envelope and past the railing and over the railing.
And trying to trying to make that happen while also being interesting to read is hard. And that's why I have a lot of respect for people who write long form fiction that does the same way. I don't know how they do it. I don't know.
It's really, look at my blog, right? It's long form. Another way of saying that is that I don't really edit myself at all. There's no careful, judicious editing on my blog. So therefore my posts will get to be like 25-minute reads, 30-minute reads, 45-minute reads. It's really easy to type a bunch of shit like that. The hard part is getting it nice and concise. I don't do that on my blog because it's my blog. Fuck you. But, especially somebody who's writing for an audience, the harder part is to make it aphoristic. The harder part is to cut out things, So this guy has it backwards.
How they have the time to do it. And two, it requires a level of discipline, I think, when you're writing. I don't know that I have yet. That's probably the next big thing that I'm going to have to work on, as a writer. But yeah, I'd say that's what it is. If you were to ask me how I write things, I would say I'm desperately trying to capture a vibe and then fighting my own disorganization to make that happen.
What a genius.
Okay, I see. That's really interesting. I feel like the idea
What
of
an internal
emotional
battle.
stories,
God,
like
it's so
that's what
epic.
really sets a story apart from others.
Mm-hmm.
Especially on the wiki. All the best stories, you can say an emotion is associated with them.
Yeah, that I feel like
now I'm not knocking writing from an emotional position. I've done that too. All right. powerful stuff, you know. But I think it's telling that that seems to be, you know, sort of his like only way of going about it. It's almost like he can't do anything else.
You know, some like the words themselves have value, right? Like it's writing. It would be silly to argue otherwise. But for my money, if I'm trying to, you know, put an idea in somebody's head, I don't want to just put a string of text in their head, right? I want to capture some kind of emotion and then give that to them as a way of like, I mean, writing is effectively trying to incept somebody else's brain, right? Like
Through a
trying to take an idea
string
that
of
has only ever
text,
existed
yeah.
within your own skull, and then using the medium of text and, you know, computer magic, put it into somebody else's head and have them experience it the same way that you did.
I failed to see how highly involved decorative CSS themes actually help with that. Just
So
an observation.
Trying to capture these like trying to capture vibes, right? Is the way that the
Bits don't
that I
kill it.
found is the most productive, most efficient way to try and, you know, capture that energy and give it to somebody else.
Okay, all right, very cool.
Never mind writing from like a thought foundation, you know. Oh, this is a nice thought. Forget that. I don't know. I'm not saying one way's better than the other. It's just that, you know, why can't you do both? I mean, it's weird.
So could you actually take me quickly like through what the bits and pieces of an SCP article are, like the
Look, we're gonna skip here, okay?
So the
Nobody cares about
being
that.
are paranormal and the paranatural, and, you know, things within their scope out of the
Awful
public eye
questions,
because
man.
of, well,
You know,
for various reasons.
how many people from SCP? I like this podcast. I like the guy. I like Shawn Saxum. He's a little cringe. Not a good podcast host at all. But I like him. I mean, you know, I'm listening to these, and I wish him well. You know, but I mean, if you're gonna have SCP people on, like numerous ones, and you're gonna ask them the same 101 questions over and over again, like. Nobody wants to hear this, man. Do you understand how many times we've heard this?
But mostly because they are
like put it in the
trying to-
description, dude. Like just here tell you what, link it to the Containment Fiction Wiki. Containment. Link it to the Containment Fiction Wiki. Scrap this question. Don't ever ask anybody else this question. And just we'll take care of that for you, baby.
you know, keep people from being exposed to that, either because they think it is dangerous. The stated principle is there is a long list of what are considered esoteric containment classes, which are containment classes that don't fall within that that very simple scope. I've used many of them myself.
Oh, how special! Ticonderoga, I think I'm not saying that right, but come to find out, that was his super special object class that he felt his SCP-4444, which is the 4000 contest entry, required, you know, because it's super, super special. Turns out that's like the name of a lot of things. It comes from a lot of places, but one of the things that it comes from is just a company that makes pencils, like old school, sharpen them up on the wall or put them into the electric sharpener, take the tray out, dump the shavings into the trash. Don't blow in there. It'll get in your face. That kind of pencil. So you can almost see the moment of discovery where the person writing is like, whether this is in universe in the containment fiction document or it's djkaktus out of universe, writing saying, what is this new object class that's just so special, you know, so cool, so cool. What could it be named? What's the name of this containment fiction object class could be? I just don't have any good idea. Hey, there it is.
And there are other formatting or other ways that that whole information block is formatted that gives you other options. There are this are really the meat and potatoes of the thing. That's where you tell the story. To use one as an example, the one I have pulled up here right now, SCP-2935 is an article that I wrote a couple years ago. It's called "Oh Death."
That's a good one. Oh boy, let me talk about that. Great article. You know, Cactus can hit him out of the park. Don't get me wrong. The man can write. He's an English major. He knows how to write. He just knows how to be so vanilla in his writing that it's boring as fuck. But I mean, it's competent. I mean, that's like saying somebody is fluent in a language. I mean, does it mean they're a good speaker? No. They can just speak fluently in the language, and DJ Cactus certainly can do that. And there are times when he's written some things. I don't know the numbers of his really, but there's one about an attic in some house that was really good. There's an article of his called, I think, 10,000 Years, which I think is one of his best. I don't think that he or most people would think that, but and then Oh Death really is one. It's one of the few ones that he's done where the reception is, it's pretty justified. It matches the quality. Everything else has a giant asymmetry with it, but that's a really good article. And total shout out to the name. Love the name. And I know where you got it from. It's from that song from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? What a fantastic rendition of that song. What an excellent voice that guy has. What an excellent old school folk country voice that guy has. Damn. Great title. Great article. I think that I have my own problems with it. There's a giant problem with that article that we won't go into, but on the whole, that's a good article.
The containment procedures for that article, which are unusual in this case, is just a single sentence. The description itself is only...
They're unusual and they're as unhelpful as possible, because by the end of the article, you understand that the in-universe containment personnel and whatever understand what has happened, but they don't actually tell you any of that in like the containment procedures or the description. So in that way, the article makes a compromise with out-of-universe considerations in order to achieve its real effect. When in-universe, it would be really hard to explain or justify from an in-universe perspective why they haven't included really the the punchline, I guess, of the composition. So, a really, really good author, I think, would know how to work that in somehow, but I don't think that... It's been a while since I read it, but those were my thoughts when I read it.
Only 3 paragraphs, but then there are a variety of exploration logs, which are just like transcripts of recordings made by task force agents investigating this unusual...
Not solely, but DJ Cactus's dilation of the addenda, and particularly the exploration log, which total props to him, he did, basically, ended up being a very wide opportunity for narrative to sort of spill in there and fill it up, to the point now where the narrative is the main point of writing containment fiction, not the anomaly.
Thing. Those transcripts make up by far the majority of the article. In fact, another article that I've written that a lot of people know more about is SCP-1730. It's called What Happened to Site-19.
Terrible. Site-13, I think he corrects himself, but terrible article. That article tries so hard to be a video game. It wants so desperately and pathetically to be adapted to some movie. The site in universe acts as a sort of like excuse to have a Avengers Marvel level set of crossovers that is specifically designed to dazzle the audience like you would dangle keys in front of a kid, one after the other. Here's this, oh, look what was contained in this site, this old SCP that you love. And it's just bad. I think that's his most overrated article. Terrible, terrible article. Just pathetic. I'll have to do a review of it one day, but it's basically it's like loading a diarrhea full of shotgun shells, just spraying the shit everywhere, just hoping to God that you hit something.
Or Site-13, rather. Excuse me. That that is a different kind of log that people might include to tell their story.
Are we over with this question yet? I guess not.
Enough. Let's just leave it as is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Let's move
So
on.
many like articles that just change things up so much, like especially recently, there are even articles that I remember there's one by Random Meanie where you literally have to like type text into the article itself. And
Yes.
It showing up.
Yeah.
Let's go back just a little bit. What were they talking about?
That is a different kind of log that people might include to tell their story. They might, and all of these different aspects of an article are also trying to do the same thing, which is describe a narrative within a very confined format. So yeah, top to bottom, that's.
But is it confined anymore? I mean, we're having like the equivalent of Wagnerian song cycles going on here. There's nothing concise about that. Once again, we'll see this again over and over, is that apparently it's, amazing and dramatic and praiseworthy to break these rules of containment fiction, to be innovative and progressive. But we'll see, as we already do, that these rules, being concise, things like that, those don't exist anymore. Those aren't rules, they're the exceptions. The new rules are what he is saying is his innovation, which I guess at one point was, but now, no. Now that's the rule. But the difference is now, if you try to skirt the rules, unless you're somebody well known, or you do just an incredibly good job, which is arguably not possible if you aren't a somebody on the SCP Wiki, at least how they see things. Well, then your article is missing something. It's bad because it doesn't have a narrative anymore. This turns out not to be quite as remarkable as someone like this wishes.
Usually are laid out, but it would be silly for me to sit here and say like those are the only options. People have done some wild things with the format, especially in the last couple of years as the wiki has kind of developed over time. And one of the things I enjoy.
So if the wiki is developing over time, why has it been the last couple of years? Well, it's because you're reaching a terminal velocity in your free fall. We've seen more disrespect as essentially the mumble rap equivalent of containment fiction thrive in the last couple of years. You have people like Rounderhouse including statements in legitimate non-J articles, phrases and statements like, oh, I can't believe you downvoted and didn't leave a comment. Harry Blank's material is filled with that sort of cheekily leaning on the fourth wall, recursive sort of self-awareness writing that frustrates, once again, that magic of that theatrical experience. It just sucks you right like a vacuum right out of the moment. But the difference now is that that's praised. So the reason why all this shit has been happening the last couple of years is because shit's getting out of control. The edges are coming apart. The wheels are coming off. Your terminal velocity down to the ground is peaking, my friend.
Or the most about the wiki is that it has never been. There are always people who are kind of pushing the boundary of what is considered an article on the main list, and people are never comfortable.
Even J's.
I should say, the people who are there's every shortage of people who are willing to push that boundary instead of sitting there and saying like, oh well, the format's good enough. Let's just leave it as is.
No, see, the problem with that is that nobody says that. See, if you didn't know better, you would think that djkaktus represents the side of any artistic engagement that says, hey, we should be pushing the envelope. That is not a unique attitude. This is not something that is monopolized by djkaktus's way of seeing things. Everybody wants to innovate in art. That's what makes art art. Okay? He's actually not saying anything at all. Because what's truly happened with the SCP is those old rules, what should be the definition, the shape of what the genre is, have long since been cast off. And now you're in this position where whatever you want goes. I mean, they're going to talk about it here in a second. You can write a fan fiction, and as long as you put SCP on it, and then stuff some of it somehow into this, the most superficial possible representation of the format. Just the most nominal, surface level shit. it's going to pass and no one's going to question it. The wiki has lost its ability to connect back with what the genre is supposed to be. It's not even itself anymore. Hell, I mean, if these weren't actual anomalies, it wouldn't be containment fiction. It's trying its hardest to be something else. And so when you try to pass off and sell this line that what you're doing is envelope pushing, no. You pushed the envelope, but you ripped through it, and it's like way over there on the floor. There's no envelope anymore. You're in free fall. There's no cardinal direction. There's no ground. What you're doing is the norm. Going back to those old rules that you have, trampled for like half a decade by now. That would be the innovation. That would be the, let's do something innovative move. Doing what you've done and what everybody now does is not unique. It's not pushing any envelope. And it is the opposite of what is trying to be said and sold here.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. So many articles that just change things up so much, especially recently, there are even articles that I remember there's one by Random Meanie where you literally have to type text into the article itself. And that's when it starts showing up.
Yeah. Randomini had a it's Randomini. I know he's Australian, so I used to call him Randomini, and he got after me one time. It's like Randama and then as if you were saying it with an
Australian, where the age of consent is 17. Why am I bringing that up? There's a good reason for it. You might not know that about Randomini.
Item class or item number, object class, but bang, 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 bang. It could be all kinds of different things. In fact, during a recent SCP 6000 contest,
Let's just say it this way: if you're 20, low 20s, and you pursue somebody who's 17, in Australia that's not illegal, guys. So calm down. It's not illegal. Keep your pants on. We shouldn't be that hard on Randomini, okay? Because it's legal over there.
At the beginning of this year, there was a huge group project, SCP. I think it's 6500.
Oh God! Oh, this is a fanfic. This is a great example of what I was just talking about, where you can write a different form of fiction. Totally. You can try as disgustingly as possible to be a video game, a choose-your-own-adventure book, in as many possible ways as you can. CSS theme, creative teaming, conglomerate teams of authors, music that plays when you open the file. The sense of responsibility and fidelity to the in-universe perspective is completely obliterated at SCP. You don't have a genre there anymore. You have a free-for-all hungry, hungry hippos where the only important thing is upvotes. That's it. You got people who are desperate to ignore that fact. That's about it for now. We'll pick up here. We're about 30, basically at the 40-minute mark. We'll pick up. It gets a little heated from here, I can tell you that. But really appreciate you listening with me. A lot of fun. Lack of lepers. See you later.